We got Iron Bowl Basketball Edition Part 2 on Wednesday night. But unlike the game in Tuscaloosa, this one was not close.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for joining us to get your first listen or watch every day and to get your best college basketball content every single day. I want to thank you everydayers in particular for joining us. If you're new to the show, welcome into you all as well. Come join the Locked On College Basketball Discord community. It is an absolute blast. It's free and the link is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Coming up later on the show today, Drake Toll and I, the host of Locked On Big 12, we're going to have a conversation about which teams from the Big 12 are possible national championship contenders and take a look at why BYU has done better than expected in year one. In real time, as I record this, Cal is beating USC 60-56 with about 4 to go. So we'll keep tabs on that in real time. Always fun. Obviously, you already know the result, and it's fun to do that ahead of time. Okay. Before we get to any of that, though, that Big 12 conversation, we got to get to some of the best action on Wednesday night. And there's a couple things I want to burn through because there was some wild stuff that happened on Wednesday night. Before I get to any game specific, my absolute favorite thing that happened on Wednesday night, my favorite nugget of the entire night, comes from Syracuse's 94-92 home win over Louisville. Maliq Brown plays for Syracuse, recorded a 5x5. What's that, you ask? Well, it's like a double-double, but instead of double figures in 2 stat categories, it's getting to at least 5 in 5 different stat categories. Yeah, that happened. So Maliq Brown, 11 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, 6 blocks, and 5 steals. That is bonkers that happened. Per Jared Burson, who does a great job with college basketball stats, just posting stuff on Twitter, this is just the 3rd such performance in the last 15 seasons of college basketball. That's how rare this thing is. Great. Congrats to Maliq Brown and to Syracuse for sneaking by Louisville there. Questionable. Let's get to the big ranked on ranked matchup of Wednesday night. This was number 16 Bama at number 12 Auburn. The Tigers run away with this thing 99-81. It frankly was not even as close as that final 18-point margin suggests. Auburn, honestly, they started to pull away a little bit in the first half, but then broke it open with a 16-2 surge in the final 3:44 of the first half leading to halftime, and then just like cruised basically in the second half. Jaylin Williams and Johni Broome, my goodness, these dudes combined for 50 of Auburn's 99 points. If this dynamic duo can keep this up, Bruce Pearl's team is going to continue to be in the great shape that they already are in. Broome, by himself, 24 points, 9 of 11 from the free throw line, 7 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 5 blocks. Not quite what Maliq Brown did for Syracuse, but it's in that territory. Great stuff there from Johni Broome. But Williams, 26 points, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. These two dudes combined for 18 of 21 at the free throw line. It's phenomenal. 6 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks. And then combined, Johni Broome and Jaylin Williams, just 1 turnover. Auburn as a team only had 5. That is winning basketball, folks. That's how you take care of business. As things are right now, and as frankly I think they will be throughout this season, hear me say this about the 2 SEC teams in Alabama. Auburn is the better team. Auburn is the more complete team. Alabama has a special offense. They can do a lot, but their downfall is that defense that is just not getting better. That is the major concern for Nate Oates' Crimson Tide teams. What's even more awesome about Auburn winning this game and the teams now splitting, each team winning at home by very different margins, I might add. The SEC standings now, after Wednesday night's action, Auburn, Bama, and South Carolina are all tied atop the lead standings at 8-2. And frankly, Tennessee's right there as well at 7-2. They've just played 1 fewer game, but have the same 2 in the loss column. So basically, we've got a 4-way tie for first in the SEC. I love it. I'm so here for that. And then 5th place, that's where Kentucky's sitting, 2 games back at 6 and 4. For Tennessee, by the way, another ridiculous game for Dalton Connect in their blowout of LSU on Wednesday night. 27, 7 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. Come on, dude, that's insane. Elsewhere in Big Ten play on Wednesday night, I did not see this result coming. This was the shock of the night for me. Number 11, Wisconsin goes to Michigan, to Ann Arbor. And this is the game where Wisconsin's coming over those back-to-back losses. The loss where they spoiled that big lead that they had at Nebraska last Thursday, and then losing at Purdue, or at home to Purdue on Sunday, which is obviously understandable. And this is a get-right game with Michigan. But the problem is, in order to have a get-right game, you got to win it. And they didn't. Michigan springs this bonkers upset, 72-68. Doug McDaniel ices it at the end at the free throw line. Now, this is not, we've had this whole season worth of top 10 teams losing on the road at unranked teams. Wisconsin's 11 right now, so it doesn't fall into that category, but it's in that same vein. It is just a wacky college basketball season. Here's why this is so shocking. Michigan came into this game having lost 5 straight and 10 of their last 11 basketball games. And they controlled this. It's not like Michigan just made this wild run and got a lucky shot at the buzzer. They led the majority of this basketball game. I beyond belief that this happened. So Wisconsin now has lost 3 straight. They've gone from 8-1 in Big Ten play to 8-4. They were in first place. Now they're in 3rd place, 2 full games behind Purdue and a half game back of Illinois. The good news for Wisconsin is they have several, 5 winnable games coming up before a March 2nd date where Illinois comes to town. Now, again, though, this Michigan game was winnable. So we're going to see what happens. This does nothing for Michigan, unfortunately. There's just too much negative on that resume. The last game I want to hit on before Drake and I talk about the Big 12. If the Auburn game was just wacky for them running away, if the Michigan win was the most shocking and unexpected result, this one, 19 Creighton at Providence, was probably my favorite game of Wednesday night. This was a super fun watch, and I hope you got to see it happen. In particular, just great offensive execution down the stretch, leads to overtime. Providence wins 91-87. I mean, seriously, it was such good back and forth. You've got Ashworth and Alexander hitting threes for Creighton. You got Josh Oduro just going off inside for Providence. Alexander attacking the rim, somehow finishing towards the end of the game. And then Stephen Ashworth gets this 3 to put Creighton up 3. Yeah, I forget exactly how much time was left, but it's like in the last minute or so. And I was like, man, that could very well be the dagger. But oh my word, Devin Carter. This dude pulls from, he's like standing on top of the Friar head, the logo that's at midcourt. He's like it'd be like he's the tassel on top of the Friar's head. And he just pulls from there. Plenty of time left on the shot clock. But it was totally a no. Great shot kind of moment. Nobody else scores the rest of regulation, and we're into overtime where Providence just puts it away. Way to go. Providence pulling away an OT. And so for this game, Josh Oduro, mentioned his name, 30 points in regulation, 32 in total. Devin Carter, gets up to 28 himself. Phenomenal stuff for Creighton. Here's the issue. Back-to-back losses. Last Friday against Butler, this game against Providence. You know what happened in both of those games? Literally identically. Of Creighton's 5 starters, the non-Mason Miller 4 against Butler, all 4 of them scored 20 points or more. Mason Miller, 0. Goose egg. Providence loss. All 4 of the other starters, double digits, 2 of whom were over 20. Mason Miller, once again, goose egg. Creighton's got, it's like the whole Kansas conversation we've been having, different positions, but that same thing where it's like Coach McDermott has to get something from that 5th guy because it cannot just be the other 4 that you rely on. Now, thankfully, they're reliable scorers, but you can't win if you're literally getting nothing in terms of points out of your fifth starter. So Friars now sitting at 6-6 in Big East play. Creighton falls to 7-5, tied with Xavier for fourth after Xavier beat Villanova on Wednesday. Whew, another one. Villanova had a lead in that game. It was at Xavier in Cincinnati there, and Xavier comes back to win at home. So Big East, wild as always, great stuff. Man, it was a great Wednesday night of basketball. Just wanted to run you through all of that. Now, again, I hopped on Locked On Big 12 with Drake Toll, their host, for a great conversation about which teams are capable of winning the national championship out of that conference. Let's see if you agree with our choices. And we'll have that conversation right after I tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl week to all of you out there who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, getting all the best snacks and drinks, holing up, finding some fun prop bets on FanDuel, and seeing what I want to dive in on. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, not just betting on Super Bowl 58, who will win. 49ers favored by 2.5 right now, by the way. But they've also got great bets, things like which players will score a touchdown. What's up, Travis Kelce? Am I right? How many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Isaac, the Big 12, national championships, no stranger. Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech being right there the last few years. This season, let's break down some of these teams that can make it, not just to the Final Four, but the national championship game and win. And before I even pitch it to you, I look at a team like Iowa State, who most people might be undervaluing and say their defensive metrics are top 1, top 2, top 3 in the country. Houston, same thing. BYU, their offensive metrics, top 1, top 2, top 3. Kansas, complete. Best starting 5 in the country, in my opinion. Baylor, sneaky team, could make a run, has a national championship head coach. Isaac, for you, who in the Big 12 is legitimate?
Right now, what's funny, Drake, for me, is it's the 4 teams that are actually at the top of the Big 12 standings that have the best chance at it right now. So that would be kind of in order right now: Houston, Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas. There are other teams with stuff like you talked about Texas Tech, who was at the top of the league ledger there for a little bit, which was wild to me. They were ravaged by some sickness this weekend. That's tough. And going into their games. Like you talked about BYU's offense. Unfortunately, with BYU, the defense just isn't strong enough, quite frankly, to get them into national championship conversation for me. But, you know, and we're going to talk about BYU later, so I'll just leave that. But as I look at those 4 teams, what's interesting is historically, there's some KenPom data and some 3-point shooting data that helps us sort some of these teams. All right. So in the KenPom era, which dates back to the 98-99 season, we've had 24 champions in that time. Of those 24 champions, 21 of them have finished the season top 10 in KenPom offensive efficiency, and literally all of them have finished top 22 in KenPom defensive efficiency. Now, hear me say that is the final number at the end of the day. So obviously, it's going to grow. That efficiency rating is going to grow as you make your way through winning 6 games in a row, right? Like that's just logical. But so what we have right now is a snapshot in time. The other thing is, Drake, in the 3-point era, which dates back to the late 80s, there has never been an NCAA champion with a 3-point percentage under 33%. So that is like, you can go ahead and look at teams around the nation. If their 3-point percentage is under 3%, rule them out right now. Now, the good news for these top 4 teams that I'm talking about, Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, and Kansas, they all 4 meet that 3-point shooting threshold. So check, right? Like we can sign off on that. In terms of the offensive and defensive efficiency, you talked about Houston's defense. It's number 1 in the nation right now at KenPom. The offensive efficiency is 20. That is outside of the top 10, but there are a few outliers three outliers that were outside the top 10. And so Houston right now is in that outlier range, but could grow, could absolutely grow and get better. Like with LJ Cryer, thoughts to you on that transfer situation. Right. So there is hope for Houston's offense there with him and Jamal Shed and everything they can do.
Yeah.
With Baylor, it's the opposite. The offense, phenomenal. Baylor's offense right now, number 4 in the nation at Ken Palm.
Yeah.
But my dude, the defense, just like last year, is 75th right now at Ken Palm.
Yeah.
That's Kentucky's Achilles heel right now. Kentucky's defense is outside the top 100. They cannot win a national championship with that. Same for Baylor. If they can tighten the screws on that thing, though, Coach Drew's team can get it going. As you look at Iowa State, it's the same kind of thing. The defense is in a good spot, as you said. The offense has to get better. With Kansas, they're just floating right there with both offense and defense. As you said, best starting 5 in the country. And what's interesting, this is a conversation that we have had a lot this season because as all the Big 12 folks know, the foursome that you knew and trusted and believed, DeJuan Harris, Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, and Hunter Dickinson. It's like, of course, duh. And then I figured coming into the season, well, it's either going to be Elmarco Jackson or it's going to be Nick Timberlake, and we'll just wait and see. And then finally, both of them have just been, frankly, not good. Yeah. And that has hurt Kansas, especially because, as we all know, Bill Self doesn't utilize his depth a ton. But now, my man Johnny Furphy has found his way. I know he had a slow game on Monday in the loss at Kansas State. True. But outside of that, if he can continue to be consistent, then Bill Self has something, and that starting 5 can go with anybody. So I'm really curious to see what Kansas can do as he gets even more ingrained into that starting lineup. But that's the question. Can we trust a reclassified Johnny Furphy to be strong for 6 straight games in March to get you to a national championship game? That is a big if, but one that I'm really excited to watch.
Of those 4, Isaac, I don't mean to make you answer the if, but of those 4, is Kansas still number 1?
For me, the difference is this. That man whose name I just invoked, Bill Self. Bill Self, to me, is the single best college basketball coach in our nation right now.
Wow.
That, to me, is enough to get you there, right? Like he knows the strings to pull and the buttons to push. But I tell you what, my man, Kelvin Sampson is right there behind him. So if I were ranking what I expect out of these teams in terms of possibility of winning a national championship, if I tiered those 4, I would go Kansas, Houston, Baylor, Iowa State.
Wow. Isaac, I know we're talking Big 12 specific, but let's go the whole country too, right? The Big 12 being the best conference in college basketball, in our opinions at least, is something that's huge. But the bits and pieces, the details of that start to me with a BYU who's been surprisingly good, or a Cincinnati who's won some games they haven't been expected to even be in. Let's go there next. How good are these teams actually on Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Basketball, your team every day? Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. The Gametime app is where I go when I need tickets, and it's not just for sports. A concert's coming up. I want to go to the concert. Or, I got this big comedy show coming up. I want to go to the comedy show. I live here in Savannah, Georgia now. I'm Eastern time zone. Everything's late. Everything's tougher to get tickets. It feels like, right? But not when Gametime is to the rescue. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. View the seat. View the entire section before you buy and talk about, wow, right now, an extra $100 if you were there for the big game in Vegas. Wouldn't you love that? You yourself getting $100, a great dinner, put it toward a great dinner. That $100 you save, put it toward a hotel. All of that, FanDuel's got you covered. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Gametime users get $100 off a big game with code VEGAS100. All caps, VEGAS100. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app. Use code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the big game, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and those are guaranteed. Isaac, BYU basketball. Help me make sense of what the offense, right? The Big 12 script is defense, and Mark Pope says, I want offense.
Screw it. That's right. Screw it.
And it's working.
It is. It's those Kentucky roots coming through, my dude. They're, no, here's the thing with BYU. It is a unique system. And I think that's not just the fact that they're leaning into offense, but that they're doing so in a unique way. Like, for example, they take they have in total this season, they have the third most 3-point attempts or second most 3-point attempts, third most 3-point makes, and they're 65th in percentage, right? Like, which doesn't sound all that great until you remember that there's 361 teams in Division I. So shooting that many at a 36% clip, that from an effective field goal percentage is phenomenal. Now, albeit, let's say that there is a lot of variability in it, even though you are shooting it at a 36% clip, there are some nights, man, when those threes just will not fall, and the defense has to be there to back it up. BYU's is okay, but it is not Houston or Iowa State level good, right? And so that's part of it with me for BYU. I mean, they not only are they scoring a bunch, but they share a bunch and they rebound a ton. Mm-hmm. So not only are they, doing everything we talked about with threes, BYU is second in the nation in assists per game, 19.8, Drake. BYU is 15th in the nation at 40.7 rebounds per game, which when you think about this, as many threes as they're taking, that means longer rebounds. That means tougher rebounds to read. So they're not like setting the world on fire with offensive rebounding, but they're doing it on the defensive end. And that's what's critical. So that's part of it as well. There's a couple other things to talk about with BYU, but those are a couple things that jump out at me out of the gate.
BYU is still below 500 in conference play in the Big 12. Now, Isaac, I think there is leeway for at least their top 25 and below 500 in conference play, which you can't do in the West Coast Conference. But in the Big 12, you can. And there are Big 12 teams that will finish a game or two below 500 and still make March Madness. Right. BYU could be one of those. But with Kansas State at home, UCF at home, on the road against Oklahoma State, 3 very winnable games. To me, Isaac, that shows this isn't fool's gold. This is going to continue for BYU, and they're not just a tournament team, but a team with an offense good enough to possibly make a run. Is BYU a lock for March and a team that could be scary?
I would say no to the first and yes to the second.
Okay.
And here's why. With that word lock, I take that always literally, meaning if this team lost every game they played until March, are they definitely in? There are teams right now that could lose literally, like if UConn lost literally every game they played the rest of the way, they would still make March Madness. So that to me is lock status. Now, so I don't think they're a lock, but I do think they can be dangerous. Here's part of why. One of the big giant killers traits of a March Madness team is a team that shoots threes at a high level that could get hot on any given day. And given everything we just said about their 3-point attack, that makes them an incredibly dangerous team and a team that no one is going to want to see show up in their bracket. Now part of it, Drake right now, one of the things that helps in a big way is the Marriott Center, dude. Like going to play there at elevation, do not underestimate how difficult that is. And also, you mentioned the West Coast Conference a minute ago. Mm-hmm. I think they are overlooked as well. And there are teams in the West Coast Conference, BYU included, prior to this year, who were legitimately really, really good basketball teams, like St. Mary's is right now, like San Francisco is at times. And going to win at the Marriott Center for Gonzaga was always insanely difficult. And the same is going to be true in the Big 12 for them. And part of it, another reason that BYU could be dangerous is it's not just one dude that they have to rely on to go off. BYU has 6 players averaging double-digit points, 7 averaging 9 or more. And so that is also, to me, a reason that they could be trouble for a team come March, because it could come from anywhere. I mean, the names most people know, you think about it, Drake, are Dallin Hall and Fusini Traore, and Noah Waterman. they're not even like, none of those three are your three leading scorers. They're like fourth, fifth, and seventh. And so March Pope's team is definitely dangerous.
It's surprising to me that BYU has found such depth in the scoring department. And I also think, Isaac, and I won't give you a chance to respond on this because it opens a Pandora's box, but BYU to me is like a Furman last year. Not in that BYU should be overlooked, but that this is a team that is so sneaky in March that we should consider them, no matter who the opponent is, even if BYU is a higher seed, the opponent that can beat anybody, because they are so good from the perimeter. They are so good from the perimeter, they could beat anyone in the field. I believe anyone in the field. Now, for a BYU that's so good, offensively, there's your Cincinnati, who feels more balanced, but still very dangerous. Is there a realm in which Cincinnati makes March Madness based on them being top 40 net right now and dangerous in the Big 12, and not only makes the tournament, but also makes noise?
Yeah, not at the. I don't trust Wes Miller's team at the same level as BYU. Yeah. I think BYU has a better ceiling, but and part of that is Cincinnati's lack of offensive capability. I mean, it's like the defense is there, and that's been a staple of Cincinnati basketball for a long time, back to Mick Cronin days. For Wes Miller, that's just even back to Wes Miller's playing days, because he was an undersized guard, a not very athletic guard, and so when he was playing at North Carolina, he was able to crack the lineup because he was like a Rudy type player, and so his team exhibits all those traits. So they're not going to back down from a fight. They're not going to be missed out on anything. I'm looking at their schedule ahead right now. They're sitting at 4-5 in Big 12 play. As you just said about BYU, there are going to be teams that get into March Madness with a 500 or slightly losing record. Right now, they're projected to have a 9-9 record in Big 12 play at Ken Palm, getting to 20 wins. And that's even before you go to the Big 12 tournament. If they could get there, that's probably enough to do it, Drake. I don't know what the seed would be, but coming up, here's their next two games: Houston and Iowa State, but they're both at home. That gives you hope. Their remaining away games are at UCF, at TCU, at Houston. That's going to be very difficult, and at Oklahoma. So if they could clip off two of those road games, man, that would go miles towards securing their spot in March.
I don't hate Wes Miller's Cincinnati team. And UCF, or obviously Houston speaks for itself, but UCF or a Oklahoma State or a West Virginia are teams that we could open a conversation about of how are they good in certain areas enough to play spoiler in this conference. They're not making it to March. I don't see UCF in March. Obviously West Virginia and UCF or Oklahoma State speak for themselves. But with this conference, it's just that deep that these teams can still pick up wins. That, Isaac, shows me that BYU and Cincinnati being as good as they are is even more impressive because the depth, the breadth of the Big 12.
Big thanks to Drake Toll for joining me on today's episode. It was great to have that conversation about the Big 12. Coming up tomorrow, Andy Patton and I will be back together to get you ready for another great weekend of college basketball. Man, we are getting closer and closer to March Madness, and I can't wait. Quick update. Cal is clinging to a 1-point lead with 59 seconds left over USC. I can't wait to watch the end of this as soon as I finish here. Thanks so much for joining us. You can join us in the Locked On College Basketball Discord community. Again, the link for that is in the show notes. It's free. Would love to have you. If you haven't already subscribed to us, it would mean so much if you would do so, both on YouTube and on audio, so you always know when new episodes are coming out. Smash the like button if you're watching so we know you were here. If you would leave us a rating and review, Apple Podcasts is a great place to do that. As always, apologies to the lawyer family. Let's go Wildcats, and until tomorrow, peace.